Ooh, a spicy question. I
because
love
the
it.
writing is sort of everything, right? Like you kind of can fix plot holes, but if the writing is
So some
there,
readers love that, and some readers are like, "But I wanted more of this." So it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. On today's episode is agent, co-founder and director of Greenstone Literary Agency, Laura Heathfield. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me today. This is
Thank you.
Very exciting. I'm always fascinated to see new literary agencies starting up. It's always exciting. It feels like there's movement within publishing. But I'd love to start with a bit about you and your path into publishing. Am I right in thinking that you finished university and then worked in an entirely different industry for some time before you got into publishing?
Yes, I have had a slightly unconventional journey into publishing. You've done your homework. I studied law at university and graduated, and then decided I had every intention of becoming a barrister and going to bar school and doing my bar vocational course, and then actually just needed some time off from studying, and so applied to be cabin crew. And so I spent a long time in aviation, which is completely different to publishing. And I flew as crew, but I was also lucky to get experience in lots of other different departments within the airline, which was Virgin Atlantic. And most importantly, the press office there was brilliant, and was able to watch how a really kind of small, hardworking team in the press office there kind of pulled off incredible feats of, building really positive relationships with members of the press, which is kind of similar in the way that agents do with editors now. I spent nearly 20 years in aviation and just loved it. Loved the people that I worked with. And then took a bit of a detour. In 2017, I had a medical incident, which meant I was unable to fly, I couldn't drive, and I couldn't work for an extended period of time. And then lockdown and homeschooling meant that I kind of took a big step back and thought about what I really wanted to do. I'd always been a really avid reader, loved books as a child, some classic boomer parenting in the 80s. My mum used to leave me on the floor of our village bookshop while she went and did a weekly shop. I don't think that would happen today. I'm not sure the bookshop owner was particularly thrilled with me just camped out on the floor either. But I think after I had surgery, and after that I just read more than I had in years, and fell back in love with books. Kind of when my children were really young, I wasn't able to prioritise reading, and I had that time to just realise that it was something I was so passionate about and I really wanted to pursue. And it was time for like a real pivot in my career. Publishing was always a bit of a vague dream. I didn't really know a huge amount about. So started following publishers, authors and agencies on social media. That was kind of the first thing that I did to kind of get more of an insight into the industry and how it worked and what different roles were. And the acknowledgement sections of some of my favourite books are a really great place to start. And I still say that now to writers who are looking for representation. If you read a book that you think, I think mine might be similar to this, always study the acknowledgement section of a book, because that's where authors always kindly credit the people that have kind of been involved in their journey and in their process of publishing. There's lots of trade secrets in there if you're prepared to kind of dig. And then I saw an advert on Instagram actually for an internship at Darley Anderson. And it was the first time I'd seen anything where there was an advert that said in big bold letters that no experience was necessary. I'd always felt a bit intimidated by publishing and just thought that if I was ever to send my CV off with no publishing experience on it whatsoever, that it would almost get laughed at, and I'd never be able to sort of get that that foot on the ladder, which I think is really hard to do, especially kind of maybe later in life where you worked in completely different industry. But that was kind of the first thing that made me think, oh, maybe this is something that I could, reasonably apply for. And the ad also mentioned that the agent that with the internship would be working alongside was Tanera Simons. And that was a name that I was familiar with. I'd read The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary when I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, actually. And it was one of those things where I was really tight on what I was allowed to take with me. Your luggage is weighed, and you have to be really careful about what you take. And my Kindle was kind of my one luxury item. And I downloaded, when I had Wi-Fi, something that I wanted to be a really comforting read during what I knew was going to be a really challenging time, kind of mentally and physically. And obviously I couldn't have picked a better read for The Flat Share. And Tanera is Beth's agent. So I applied for the internship at Darley Anderson, and that was my first role in publishing.
I know that you became Tanera's assistant at one point. Was that you kind of fulfilled the internship and then kept you on?
Yeah, so I did the internship and then became Tanera's full-time assistant, and I worked alongside her there for 3 years. And couldn't have asked for a better mentor, as my first role in the industry. From the very beginning, she was really generous with her knowledge and her experience. And within a few weeks of working with her, I was sharing meetings with her and editors at London Book Fair, watching her pitch books and forge relationships with people in the industry, which was so exciting. It was a really incredible time for me. It's kind of from going from nowhere and just being an intern to that kind of experience with an agent at that level was really exciting.
Okay, wow. And so how long were you working as Tanera's assistant before you started building your own list?
So kind of really early on at Darley Anderson, Tanera gave me the opportunity to handle audio submissions on behalf of her clients. That was kind of my first chance to kind of dip my toe into agenting. So every stage of that process, from networking with editors, acquiring audio, pitching in person, drafting submission emails, right through to negotiating deals and contracts. And my first deal was for an author who's with us now, is Natalie Cooper, and her first book came in on submission to Tanera, and I read it and I just said, this is brilliant, I love this. And Tanera signed her at Darley, and she's with us now at Greenstone, and her first 2 books sold to Audible, which was a real moment for me, like as an agent, and just wonderful to be able to do that for Natalie. Okay,
so when you say like you're handling audio rights, as in like explicitly just the audiobook part of things?
Yeah, so often as agents will, when we send something out on submission, we'll send audio submissions separately to audio publishers. Most of the kind of the big publishers will want the full set of rights, including audio. But as agents, we love the opportunity to be able to carve out the rights to kind of maximise potential for the authors. And there are luckily some publishers that are got much more flexibility when it comes to rights, and if we can sell the audio rights separately to something, then that's always really brilliant. Audio, I'm a massive audiobook listener and a huge fan of the format, so it's wonderful to be able to kind of see that experience, which is quite different to print and ebook publishing. The process of narration and casting and production and being involved in that is really interesting.
Okay, but I mean, like you mentioned, if we're talking like big 5 publishers, they almost universally will ask for all rights.
Yeah, it's it's an ongoing conversation with a lot of publishers. Some of them it is a red line. They say we can't acquire without audio, but then there are brilliant audio specialists, and that is their only format that they publish in, and so it's wonderful to be able to kind of to give the audio rights to an expert in audio, and particularly Audible have been a brilliant team to work with. They're so ambitious with their narrators, and Natalie's had her first book was narrated by Jenna Coleman, and her latest book, You Again, is narrated by Bella McLean, who is kind of the breakout star of Disney Plus rivals, and has just done an absolutely brilliant job with the narration. So it's really exciting to have. It's a very different experience to kind of going into a bookshop and seeing your physical book on a bookshelf, but equally exciting to have that kind of experience of someone of that caliber narrating your book.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of your list, you started building your list after you'd kind of cut your teeth on the audio stuff.
Yeah, so then we founded Greenstone in May last year, and I've started building my list at Greenstone. Prior to leaving, there's a couple of Tanera's clients who were bit more of a natural fit for me, and so one in particular is Ali Zetterberg, and Ali is a brilliant writer, and so we actually dual represent her. So Tanera represents the kind of uplit book club side to her writing, and then recently she has written a thriller. It has been announced it's going to be published by Berkeley by Penguin Random House in the US next year, and it's called The Dating Game, and it's very different to Ali's previous writing. It's kind of a really voice-led female serial killer with set in Monaco, and the lead character is a board game designer. And so when we were setting up Greenstone, we kind of decided that it made sense, because I was going to be kind of building a list more in the kind of crime thriller genre, for me to represent that side of Ali's writing. And then Tanera still very much represents her book club uplit writing, and she's got her second book coming out later this month, published by HarperCollins in the US, called The Second Chance Bus Stop. So it's really brilliant that we still Tanera and I both get to be collaborative and feed into both sides of Ali's writing. And then I've started to kind of slowly, organically build my list at Greenstone, which has been really exciting.
Yeah, I can imagine as an agent, the sort of, obviously it's always going to be exciting and interesting. Other agents I've spoken to who have been doing this for a long time and have a quite built out list. They say, the bigger your list is, the more kind of conflicts and more kind of reasons to against picking up something new are there. Like whether it competes with something else on your list or whatever it might be, it must be very exciting having a sort of fresh, all this room where you're like, I'm excited to like be picking up a bunch of new things. Yeah,
exactly. And I think what's really nice is that as a reader, I have really broad taste, and I read cross-genre. I normally have like at least one or two books on the go at the same time for very different reasons. And what I love that I'm able to do now is that I can my reading tastes can feed into what I'm signing at Greenstone. So I don't have to kind of pigeonhole myself into a particular genre. And if I love something and fall in love with it, it doesn't really matter what genre it is. I've got the ability to move forward with it. The first author that I signed at Greenstone was April Howells, and she submitted to me in summer last year, and I remember vividly reading her pitch letter, and I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds brilliant. But I'm not sure if this kind of fits more with what Tanera's taste is and what what she's doing. And we have this amazing system in our submissions that someone far cleverer than me has built for us. And I'm able to tag Tanera in the submission. And I said to her, I tagged her in the submission and I said, I absolutely love this, but I feel like it would also be a really good fit for you. And Tanera is generous as always. And it's like, well, if you love it and she submitted to you, then absolutely, then that should fall under you. So I kind of, April's book, I always kind of describe to people as, it's the book I didn't know I was looking for until I read her pitch. And I can't say too much about it. It hasn't been announced yet, but it will be announced soon. And it's a kind of an uplit historical based on fact, and but it's just this really beautiful, heartwarming, intergenerational story of that I completely fell in love with. And so yeah, it wasn't necessarily anything that I would have specified on my wish list, but I just read it and fell in love with it, and I'm so excited to be representing it.
Yeah, okay. I've heard that a lot from agents where I'll ask, like, is there anything you're looking for specifically? And they're like, I'm not sure. I'll know it when I see it. It's hard to
that's so down. Frustrating for people when they're kind of looking for the right agent to submit to. But I think that is, I always say, if you think I might like it, then send it to me, because I think the way that Tanera and I've kind of, and Liza now as well, we kind of present ourselves, there are kind of genres that we sort of would specialize in, I would say. But, and we always, like I say, we have this brilliant system where we can tag each other in submissions and very much share them between us. And I will know instantly if something wasn't right for me, but it was right up Liza's street, or it was right up Tanera's street. So I hope that that's comforting for people when they're looking at kind of who to submit to at Greenstone, that we do have this kind of really collaborative approach to submissions. But if you think something might be for me, then absolutely, just send it to me, because we do read everything we're sent. I have to admit that I have a bit of a backlog with my submissions at the moment, and I'm hoping that August is a little bit quieter, and that's going to give me lots of reading time, because I definitely would love to find something. I kind of describe myself as kind of the darker side to Tanera, who is the queen of rom-com and romance, but also kind of dabbles in other areas. And we do have a kind of a crossover in some of our taste. And Liza is very much kind of the speculative, high concept, more like fantasy-led genres. She also does kind of non-fiction and cookery books. And I am just unapologetically commercial. Books that I love books that you want to talk to somebody about, or you can imagine 5 different people in your life that you want to buy it for and send it to, and you want to go on Amazon and be like, I'm going to order this book for all these different people, and I think they're all going to love it, and I want them to read it so that then I can talk to them about it. So that could be a thriller that's got the best twist in it that you never saw coming, and I love that feeling as a reader when you think to yourself, oh, I'm so clever. I've got this all figured out and I know exactly what's happening here. And then there's something happens, whether it's a line or a scene, and it just sweeps the rug out from under you, your jaw drops and you just feel completely spun. And those are the kind of books that I recommend to others in kind of the crime thriller genre, because I want other people to kind of have that feeling too. And I just, there's nothing better than that. And then there's the kind of, I also love, to cry my eyes out over a book. I love a heartbreaking, like sweeping romance that again, just breaks your heart and pieces it back together again. And that's where there might be kind of some crossover with Tanera. But again, I will always kind of instinctively know when I read a submission that, I want this, or actually this is more suited for Liza or Tanera. So yeah, there's I hope that that's comforting for people when they look at like who to submit to, because I know that we have the same issue when we're kind of looking at who to send to. In certain publishers, certain editors will acquire across genre, and you're kind of looking at different profiles and what they publish and thinking, oh gosh, who is the best person for this? So I do understand that dilemma.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of your list, more specific.
If you're a custodial supervisor at a local high school, you know that cleanliness is key, and that the best place to get cleaning supplies is from Grainger. Grainger helps you stay fully stocked on the products you trust, from paper towels and disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Plus, you can rely on Grainger for easy reordering, so you never run out of what you need. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Running a business means checking a lot of boxes.
Let's see. Payroll? Check. Inventory? Check. Insurance?
Good thing Simply Business makes getting small business insurance fast and easy. Check insurance off your list at simplybusiness.com.
For people listening who are thinking about maybe querying and things like that, what genres and ages, in a sort of broad sense, do you represent?
So yeah, I'm trying to think how many authors I have now on my list. I think 6 or 7. So it's small and growing. Okay. But it's kind of organically alongside the agency as well. So I am definitely looking for the darker stuff. I would love to find something that links to a cult or a scam. I'm a real true crime addict. I love true crime documentaries and podcasts, and some of them that I've listened to or watched that feel like fiction, and I would love fiction that feels like true crime. So something along the lines of like Apple Cider Vinegar on Netflix, which explores the shocking story of Belle Gibson and the what she did, and kind of the people that were completely taken in by her, and then the aftermath of that. Similarly to like the Anna Delvey scandal and what Coco Berthman did as well. I just find them endlessly fascinating. And I'm always intrigued by anything that involves cults or secret societies. Again, I often comp like Netflix documentaries or podcasts because I just find them so gripping and entertaining, and I'd love to see that kind of same level of entertainment in fiction. The BBC Sounds World of Secrets was brilliant, and the recent one I watched on Netflix was the investigation into the fundamentalist branch of the Church of Latter-day Saints, Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, which was beyond harrowing, but really just fascinating watching, although I would recommend a trigger warning before you delve into that. But I would love to find fiction that feels like true crime in along those kind of lines. And I have a couple of authors on my list now that are doing those kind of things and more. So, that I would welcome submissions along those kind of lines. I'd also, something I don't have on my list, but I would love to have is a cozy crime. And I feel like this is something that a lot of people say. Obviously, there's people that are doing incredible things with cozy crime, like Richard Osman has kind of really opened up the door to that genre. But I'd love something that's really original and clever with a really diverse cast or a really unique setting in cozy crime that feels very different. I would love to have something like that on my list. I currently don't have anything like that. I also currently don't have a police procedural, and I feel like, again, that's something that agents often say, and I have had a lot of submissions in that area, but there's nothing yet that's made me go, oh, this is different enough, or this is stand out enough, or this really has pulled me in enough from the outset to want to move forward with. So I would love to see, I'd love to have a really brilliant police procedural on my list.
That's a tricky, police procedural, given how prolific that genre has been over like decades, it's a difficult thing to find your like uniqueness with, you need to have something that's really like different. Yeah,
I completely agree, and that's what I think why I don't have anything yet, because it is really hard, and I haven't found it yet. So, but yeah, remain on a quest for that.
Okay,
definitely. Yeah. And then something I'm also dabbling in, which is really exciting, is nonfiction, which I've not done before. It's something that Liza has done really well with, and I'm really excited. There's a couple of things that she's got coming up, and I've just started working with an author called Natalie Englander, and she's someone who I've actually followed on my personal social media for a while, and I actually approached her about her work and whether she would be interested in writing a book, because she's the perfectionism therapist on Instagram, and I just love her reframing of perfectionism and her approach to it. And I think that's kind of what I'm looking for in nonfiction, is a kind of a completely different approach to something. So I think the way people have traditionally viewed perfectionism is it's something that you need to recover from or overcome, and it's such a barrier to progress, and it leads to procrastination, and it's something that, you know, can be a real problem. And actually Natalie's approach is that it's you can lean into your perfectionism, and you can have these strategies to become a healthy, thriving perfectionist, where instead of it being a barrier to your success, it can become your greatest asset. And as someone who struggles with perfectionism, this is really exciting to me. And so that's the kind of nonfiction that I'm interested in, something that I feel will have universal appeal and is kind of presenting an issue in a completely different light and giving like the tools to approach it from a completely different perspective.
Okay, cool. So quite broad, but generally I'm sensing, at least with the fiction side of things, lots of sort of mystery, crime, things to be solved. That's the kind of thing that you really seem to be interested in.
Yes, yeah, I'd say that is kind of primarily what I'm looking for, definitely. But what I love about how we're working is that I'm still working and reading collaboratively with Tanera and Liza as well. We read each other's manuscripts, we feed into each other's manuscripts editorially, and so. Although, yes, I feel like I'm definitely looking to expand my list in crime, thriller, mystery genres, I can still dip my toe into the romance, the fluffy stuff.
Okay. So you're open to more things. Maybe it can quite sometimes be useful for people to say, are there any genres that you absolutely do not represent?
Yeah, that might be easier, actually. I think I'm not a children's agent. I'm not, that's not an area of speciality to me. There are brilliant children's agents out there. If you've written a children's book or poetry or middle grade, then I'm probably not the right agent for you. And similarly with kind of screenplays and novellas, that's not something that I would feel confident taking on. And I think there are much better agents out there for those types of work.
Mm-hmm. In terms of genres, are you open to sci-fi, fantasy?
So I will always say yes, because I do read fantasy. But at the moment, the few fantasy submissions that I've had come in, I've actually shared with Liza, because I feel like she is a real reader of fantasy and she's passionate about that area of the market. But at the same time, if something came into me and I absolutely fell in love with it, then I would want to move forward with it. I came quite late to fantasy. I think maybe that's my age. But I feel like, the likes of kind of Sarah J. Maas and Fourth Wing. And I was always like, I don't know if that's really for me as a reader. It's not something I read when I was younger. But have completely changed my mind on that, and was persuaded by other people, no, you would love this. And they were right. They were completely right. And I do, I love that kind of immersive feeling of being swept up in a completely different world, and alongside kind of the drama and romance and spicy scenes that we see now in fantasy and romantasy. is it's endlessly entertaining, which is always what I'm looking for.
Okay, so potentially on that kind of very pacey, romance-driven side of fantasy, yes, but maybe not on the sort of epic fantasy, the Brandon Sandersons or the Joe Abercrombie kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. I would say that's fair. Yeah.
I think we've got a good kind of image of kind of what you're looking for there. And we are at the point in the episode where I pack you up and ship you off to the middle of nowhere and ask you, if you were stranded on a desert island with nothing but a single book, which book do you hope that it would be?
This is so mean. Agents must hate this job.
They do more than authors, I find.
Yeah, I have thought about it. I knew this question was coming, and I think obviously you're kind of torn. Like, do I want something really practical that's going to teach me how to build a fire and skin a fish and things like that? But I did fairly extensive survival training when I was cabin crew, so I kind of feel like those principles are quite ingrained in me, like protection, location, water, food. So I think I'm just going to have to go for something that is entertaining. Going to have a lot of time by yourself. I think you'd want something that was really distracting. And a book that I'd read for pleasure. I'm not a rereader. That's the thing with only having one book. One of the only books I think I've ever reread for pleasure is Jane Austen. I never tire of Pride and Prejudice, and I'm sure so many people must pick this one. But I just, every time I read it, in fact, I think I might need to reread it again soon. The characters, the time period, the relationships, the romance, it ticks all of my boxes. She packs so much into her pages. It's really pacey. And every time I read it, I fall in love with it a little bit more. And I don't even think it was a set text for me at school. I know a lot of people are like, I had to read it at school and it felt like a chore. We did Emma, which I loved. And then Clueless, the film, came out, and that made me love it even more. And I kind of went down, which I've now rewatched with my children, and they love it, which is brilliant. And I kind of went down my own Jane Austen rabbit hole. They're making a new version as well, aren't they? Which is being adapted by Dolly Alderton. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm a huge fan of Dolly's writing since Everything I Know About Love and her podcast, The High Low, which I still really miss. And people have been saying, don't mess with the original version, but I'm totally here for a new version of it.
Well, we have
maybe
great
Pride and
versions of
Prejudice,
it already, so I'm fine for them to do something new with
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. But then a few years ago, I'm in a book club and someone picked Vanity Fair, and I was like, always, I'm up for that. And I ordered it on Amazon, and when it arrived, the version that I'd ordered, the text was so small and the book was still so thick. I was completely overwhelmed, and I have to admit, I didn't even start it. And I hope none of my book club are listening to this. I didn't read it. So maybe on a desert island, I would have the opportunity to read that. Because so many people said, if you love Austen and, period, you would love it. So maybe I should take Vanity Fair. Yeah,
it would be a good time. Hopefully with a bigger font size, so you have to squint to look at it.
Yes. Yeah. I think I'd have enough time on my hands to tackle the I don't even know how many pages were in the book. I just know it's still sat on my shelf, and I look at it occasionally. I'm just like, no, not today.
Okay. This is how I now know that you're not an epic fantasy reader, because the size of a book does not intimidate me anymore. They're too big.
My husband, he is not a reader and has only recently got into reading. over the last couple of years. And what has made the biggest impact on him is because he always was put off by the size of any book. And he used to flick through and be like, oh, where's the next like gap? Where's the next bit of dialogue? Or, are there pictures in it? Whereas he said now on a Kindle, he's like, I can't see how big the book is. And it's made, and he recently read Putin's People, and I think it's about 1,000 pages. And he was like, yep. Smashed it because I wasn't put off by how big it was because I couldn't tell on my Kindle. So I think maybe can I take a Kindle to a desert island? That might be
you could take a Kindle with cheating? One book downloaded on it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, very mean. Okay, yeah, probably Vanity Fair.
Okay, that's a great choice. I also don't think anyone's picked it yet. You're right in thinking a lot of people have picked Jane Austen. It's not usually Pride and Prejudice, though. It's usually Emma. Emma's the fan favourite. Yeah,
I think maybe because that was the set text for me at school. I think if you read something because you feel like you have to at school, it does ruin it. But then I always kind of felt a bit different in that sense. I remember when my English teacher walked in with the stack of Jane Eyres, and this was, I think it was a GCSE text to me, and he walked in and he's like, yep, so we're going to, and everyone in the classroom groaned. And I was like, oh no, I've always quite wanted to read that. And I think that's when I knew that I was a bit different when it comes to books.
That's good. And Emma, speaking of recent adaptations, I mean, it was a few years ago now, but that the more modern Emma adaptation, I think was great. I really liked it.
Yeah, I think similarly to Pride and Prejudice, I would watch or read any kind of format of it, and the fact that it transferred. I think I wrote my A-level English essay about comparing the themes in modern day and how it transferred into Clueless. I think is just an example of how everlasting those books are, and how relevant they will still be, and that's why I think that there will always be new versions coming out, and however much people kind of stamping their foot saying don't mess with the 1995 BBC version of it. I was like, no, I will definitely watch. I love the Keira Knightley film.
Yeah, that one's great.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the next TV version of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fun of it is seeing all the different interpretations of it. I don't want to see the same thing over and over again, but I kind of do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's the dilemma. I assume an agent's dilemma as well is, when you're looking for a book, it's like it needs to be enough of the same, but enough new that this can work in the market.
I think, that is the struggle. I think one thing we always say about in a submission letter is to use comp titles. And I think it's because obviously for us, I take my job as an agent so seriously, because you're handling somebody's creative endeavors, which is, it's their art, it represents hours and hours of their time and their effort and their energy that they've poured into their work. And but we are also in a business, and the business of selling that work. And so part of making it saleable is being able to kind of show editors a vision for it and what it would look like on shelves. And the easiest way to do that is through using comparative titles that have done really well and that hit a certain spot and have a huge readership and appeal. So I think, like you say, making something the same but different, it's that kind of, yes, it's it's got this and it's got elements of this, but actually in a completely unique way. So it's really hard to describe it, but I think comp titles are a really clever way of doing that. I think a book was recently recommended to me, and they said, "Oh, it's Love Island meets Lord of the Flies," and I was like, "Oh, I'm there."
Oh, wow.
What a brilliant pitch for that book. And
you get it straight away too.
And so I think that. Exactly. And I think, it doesn't have to be a book. It can be like a TV show. It can be a podcast. And I think that it's just a really clever way of condensing down the essence of the book and showing people that it's something that you'll know, and it's got that element of familiarity to it, but actually in a completely different format.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I'd love to talk a bit more about query letters and all of that fun stuff and go a bit more into the list. But we're about to go into the extended part of the episode, which will be available on patreon.com/rightandwrong.
Sort of spiraling and self-doubt, and ultimately, if your book is brilliant, then someone will want to represent it and someone will want to publish it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to the end of the episode. So thank you so much, Laura, for coming on the podcast and chatting with me, telling me all about your career and your experiences within publishing and becoming an agent. It's been really fun and interesting chatting with you.
Thank you, Jamie. It was really great. Thank you for having me on.
It was such a pleasure. And for anyone wanting to keep up with what Laura is doing, you can follow her on Instagram at laura.heathfield. And if you want to check out Greenstone Literary, the website is greenstoneliterary.com. You can find them on Twitter at Greenstone Lit and on TikTok and Instagram at Greenstone Literary. To support this podcast, like, follow and subscribe, join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes, and check out my other podcast, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again to Laura, and thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Shout out time. One of my amazing patrons, Lee Foxton, is querying their debut novel. It's a family drama, commercial fiction along the lines of Jojo Moyes and David Nichols. Fingers crossed. I am rooting for you. Good luck.
If you're a custodial supervisor at a local high school, you know that cleanliness is key, and that the best place to get cleaning supplies is from Grainger. Grainger helps you stay fully stocked on the products you trust, from paper towels and disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Plus, you can rely on Grainger for easy reordering, so you never run out of what you need. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.